Hey, Attached to Hygiene listeners, Jack here to mention that we want to hear from you. Just head to the show notes for the link to our listener survey and get access to 5 documents that will help you grow your knowledge around sustainability in the absorbent hygiene industry. And now, on to the episode. If you listen to our most recent episode, you now have a nice overview of the current Americas market and how it is expected to grow in the coming years. Plus, you have some insights into user habits and preferences in the region, and how commoditization is impacting both producers and customers. But the question now is, how are all of those factors impacting producers in the region and their suppliers? And how are they impacting consumers and changing their expectations around products and how they buy them? Luckily, Bostik is here to help. Welcome to Attached to Hygiene, the podcast that enables you to grow your knowledge and influence in the absorbent hygiene industry. My name is Jack Hughes, and my mission is to help you, the absorbent hygiene article producer, design and produce the best possible products to meet the needs of your customers. On today's episode, we're continuing our conversation with Augusto Quiroz and Kelley Riegert. They'll continue to draw on their experience and relationships throughout the region to share insights on the challenges being faced by producers and what they are seeing when it comes to consumer trends. All of this will help you be ready to meet the needs of absorbent hygiene product users in the Americas. You mentioned the challenges that producers are starting to face around commoditization in this case, but there are certainly other challenges that the article producers are facing, along with their material suppliers like Bostik in the current economic and world environment. And so, Augusto, I'll start with you on this. Can you dive a little deeper into what some of the challenges the producers and their suppliers are seeing in the market right now?
Sure, Jack. It wouldn't be a surprise for anybody out there that the logistic challenges worldwide and the increase of every type of raw material have affected all the producers and have affected us as well. So it has been kind of a nightmare in the last 24 months for everybody in the industry. So getting raw materials from overseas to a local factory on time with the right quality at acceptable price, it has been a big challenge. So we are all in this boat together. We try to navigate this complexity to get raw materials on time and to produce on time. And I understand how difficult it has been for our customers, the article producers, to overcome this situation. It is unprecedented time today. Again, something we have not seen in the last decade or more, but this is the time we're living. So we need to go through this, continue to be creative, because how we together need to serve the market.
Yeah, and certainly in North America, it's no different than what Augusto was saying, that we're all in this boat that's been on these rocky seas for 2+ years. And it seems like just when we think we might be getting over the hurdle, something else, is thrown at us, whether it's the war in Ukraine or whatever the case might be. And I think, too, when I thought about, the pressures on our customers recently here in North America, or at least the U.S. specifically, Walmart put out a commercial that specifically states that they understand the, inflationary effects and the rising costs for consumers. And so therefore, they are pushing their suppliers, the diaper producers, food, all those things to keep their prices as low as possible so Walmart can keep their prices as low as possible for the consumer. And of course, as someone who, has a raw material that goes into a hygiene article, immediately I think about the pressures of that, Walmart or any store is putting on their suppliers to keep their costs low, sometimes even saying this is as much as we'll pay for a bag of diapers, so figure it out. And then we have to work with our customers to make that equation work, right? And can make that equation work in a number of different ways. Certainly everything keeps going up and we have to keep the lights on, as do our customers. But, we can help improve efficiencies. We can try and help with, logistical issues and just a number of variety of ways to try and reduce costs and keep the equation of, the financial equation working. So it's certainly been a very challenging couple of years and will continue to be so. But through partnerships with our customers and such is how we get it done and come out okay on the other side. So overall, I think the industry has taken on these challenges, with open arms and open eyes in terms of how to figure it out. And I think, we'll all just continue to do so.
That is such an interesting strategy by a retailer to essentially pass the buck, if you will, or pressure their customers, and by extension, a company like us to keep prices lower. When in some cases there's only so much we can do to do that, but that is a very interesting approach.
Yep.
With those, the kind of the raw material challenges and profitability concerns and everything that you both just mentioned, I'm curious, are we seeing kind of a move towards localization where being able to supply factories or production sites that are producing hygiene products closer to where they're producing and being able to whether it's shipping supplies to them from the same country or at least the same region? Has that become a priority for producers?
I think, Jack, it will depend. In Latin America, it's a very vast region. So I would say, for example, we have the group of Brazilian producers serving just Brazil. They do not export. The country is quite large itself. So they are focused to even one specific region or two specific regions within Brazil, just to give you an example of the proportion of their strategy. But there is, for example, a hub in Colombia. So every single producer of hygiene articles are located in Colombia, and they serve that region, Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela, part of Central America. So that is different. In Mexico, we have producers serving the local market, but also exporting to other countries. So it varies, but it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and I don't think we've seen necessarily a huge shift in North America. I think for the most part, a lot of production for the products that are used in North America have been produced here for as long as I've been at Bostik and longer. So I don't think there's been a shift because it's already been that way. But certainly a recent example of, and I don't think we could call, and this is the only one I could think of off the top of my head, one site opening up a trend, but Ontex recently just purchased a site here to open up a baby manufacturing site to produce locally in the U.S. for the U.S. Again, I don't think we could call one, and maybe there's more and I'm misremembering, but so certainly they have decided to take on that, that frame of mind of producing for this market in this market. And I believe everybody else, for the most part, who is producing in this market for this market has been for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of shows that despite one, it's interesting that at least as of now, we are seeing some trends towards localization, but not major trends. There's still obviously plenty of international trade within our industry that would, and even intercontinental trade that they're working within the challenges of the current shipping and logistics environment. But Kelley, to your point, I think back when Ontex announced that, I was a little surprised, kind of knowing that, knowing a lot of the stuff we just talked about, that it's North America is a pretty saturated market. It's a pretty mature market. The birth rates are declining or at least not increasing at a significant rate. It's a market with potential, but it's also a very competitive market, but obviously one that a company like Ontex still saw a lot of value in being on the ground producing products for it. So I thought that was really interesting and probably says a lot about the competitiveness and the continuing competitiveness in the U.S. market and the North American market moving forward.
Yep, totally agree.
And one other challenge I wanted to touch on, which is something we're seeing particularly in Europe, but I know Rocky and Tina, our colleagues, just mentioned it a little bit in for the APAC market, is regulations. And we had an episode on regulations, particularly around period products in North America. And I'm just curious, Augusto, we'll start with you on this one. Are we seeing any regulatory trends around AHPs in the region that could have either an immediate impact or potentially a long-term impact on products or product transparency or things like that?
Well, Jack, I see that Latin America is very far from what Europe is doing, for example. The answer is no. In Latin America, we are not seeing that level of regulation or entities pushing for more transparency, not yet. Our customers comply with local authorities or local regulation, etc. But thinking in the market side of this, we're still very far from other regions. And I do not see that coming shortly. So this is something that Latin America needs to do better in terms of transparency and, like these particular entities like the Europeans have in place. Latin America is far from that.
And I would say that this is something that, in my opinion, North America much more closely mirrors Latin America than Europe. I think the drivers in Europe, just my opinion, is more because there's so much more government regulation on products and such. Over in Europe, obviously in North America and especially in the US, which I'm, most familiar, we have, the FDA and other, government agencies that overlook these type of products and such like that. But in terms of imposing regulations like those that we've seen in Europe and such like that, we just are not there in North America. Same thing along the lines of imposing like sustainability efforts and those kind of things. Certainly we're farther away from that than Europe as well. I think in general, in North America, we want to, be more sustainable and want to have, quote unquote, keep moving the bar for safer products and more transparency and those sorts of things. But I don't foresee there being any huge shifts in that anytime soon, just because I think in order for there to be huge shifts, it would have to be either leaders in the market make the jump and therefore everyone else has to follow, or government would have to step in to make huge changes. And again, that's just my opinion from being in the industry and the customers that I talk to. The other big thing that could push it would be if retailers pushed it. I haven't seen that big step yet either. So I think in North America we're waiting for that to happen before we see a big shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I talked about this a little bit with Jane Wishneff on the episode that she joined around regulations in North America, or at least specifically in the US. And as of now, I mean, it's left up to states to make those decisions. And so, 1, 2, 3 states, I think two states as of now are doing something, and with more in the pipeline, but certainly not unanimous across the board, which lends its own sense of challenges in the United States in particular. And so that's, certainly a little bit of a different situation to, a place like Europe, where you have the European Union that can, with lots of input, but help dictate rules for multiple countries as opposed to,
Right.
a couple of states. So, yeah, that's a lot of differences there. And kind of alluded to this or talked about it specifically, Kelley, the old like chicken and egg dilemma of, are retailers and producers going to do stuff if customers aren't demanding it at a high scale? Are they only going to do it with regulations or government agencies requiring it? Or because the only thing that's going to drive costs down for some of these things is, particularly in the sustainability sphere, is by, more demand. And, it kind of is, are consumers going to demand it, or
Right.
are retailers going to demand it? Are producers just going to do it because they know it's the right thing to do and that they know that's where the market's going to go? Or is the government going to step in and demand it? But right now it's kind of this like gray area where none of those four groups have specifically kind of taken the step. And so you kind of have little pockets of things happening, or some products in the market being sustainability focused or more forward about ingredient transparency, but certainly not completely across the board yet.
Correct.
Yeah, very, very complex. So I know we're coming up towards the end of our discussion here and want to be cognizant of the both of your time. And so based off all that, I want to touch on kind of the consumer needs and consumer trends as we do with all these episodes. And here at Bostic, we lump those into 5 categories, or we call them the 5 C's of convenience, comfort, confidence, consistency, and cost. And we've already talked about cost a little, but I do want to, and we're not going to touch on all 5, but I do want to touch on a couple. And I'll start with convenience. And I know both of you, this is one that kind of in our pre-show discussions was really interesting because it's a trend we're seeing across the globe, but one that is maybe for me in particular, and I know Kelley, you as a new mom found it a little confusing and interesting as well. And we'll start with convenience, but particularly around the growth in pants. And our colleagues in Asia, Tina and Rocky, kind of we're preaching the virtues and the benefits of pants diapers, and we're seeing growth in pants diapers across the board and those getting popular for younger and younger ages. But Kelley, I know you have an opinion on this as a new mom. So I wonder if you could talk about the growth in pants from a convenience standpoint.
Yeah, certainly. So as Jack alluded to, I'm a new mom. My son will be 10 months old in less than a week here. And right now, my only experience with pants, training pant type such, is the swim diaper, because that's pretty much the only form you can find a swim diaper in is a pant form. And I do not understand why you would want to change your child's, 4, 5, 6 times a day in a training pant versus just an open diaper that has, stretchier tabs, or however the diapers that you purchase are made. I cannot imagine like sliding a pant onto a wiggly 10-month-old, 5 or 6 times a day, especially then taking one off that's been used. So I don't understand this trend for growth in pants at all. Certainly I could see the many advantages of that once, your child is older and you're using, training pants instead of diapers and those sorts of things. But I personally am a huge fan of the open diaper. And while it's still very difficult to change my moving, wiggling 10-month-old baby boy, I cannot imagine trying to, get like I said, my only experience is a swim diaper, which we do frequently now. And I can't imagine doing that every time. So certainly there must be benefits that, other regions see, since they are growing significantly in terms of share size for the younger babies and infants and children. But I personally do not understand this.
That's a good point, Kelley. And let me help you with some examples. When I talk to my colleagues in Latin America, certainly pants is coming. That's a trend. Just to put everybody in the right context, in Brazil, Unicharm arrived with pants several years ago, and they set the new standard. The Japanese culture, you, Jack, talk with our colleagues there, and we all know how important and famous is the usage of pants in Asia. So in Brazil, they started to bring this Japanese concept, and it has been working well. But in the rest of the region, pants has been seen as a good complement to the portfolio. And some examples, Kelley's, when we talk to the moms out there, is they tend to use pants when the kids is older, probably 2 years or 18 months, something like that. So that is also a fact that moms are working today. So they are postponing the potty training, and this is why they're wearing pants these days. So this is why we are seeing producers making pants in just the large size or XL size or XXL sizes, for really big toddlers. So pants are coming in Latin America, but not in every single size. They are more trained to a specific niche. For example, when we talk to some moms and dads out there, they say, okay, we will put pants only for overnight use. So they buy a bag of pants that will last for 30 days. Something like that. And they continue using both open diaper and pants.
So I was just going to say that makes sense, especially for like the older kids, but not yet potty trained. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I was going to say the exact same thing. The older kids are even, I've heard of the overnight where, pants. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Tina, she's a relatively new mom as well. And we've talked to other colleagues in Asia. And this has, been even 4 or 5 years ago when I started at Bostic. They make it sound so easy. Oh, you hold them up, you slide the pants up, and it's super easy, no matter how young they are. And I don't know, they must have some trick to doing it that we don't quite understand. Because I agree, Kelley, getting one on and off. I don't have kids, but the idea of getting a squirming little, 1-year-old or less into a pant or out of a pant without causing a mess seems complicated.
Yeah,
indeed.
Maybe we need a demonstration sometime. See what they're doing. So pants are one of the big trends in convenience. I know both of you had ideas on a couple of the other C's that we've got. So I want to be cognizant of time and move on to confidence here. So Augusto, what are we seeing as far as some trends in the sphere of confidence that are happening in the market?
Thank you, Jack. Well, in Latin America, for example, I will bring up the core design of a diaper. For many years, the industry has been reducing thickness of the core. However, in Latin America, moms are still hesitant to adopt thinner cores. So when you ask, okay, what do they prefer? There are still moms that they were educated to see, the bulkier, the better, blah, blah, blah. So that has been a challenge for our article producers to really introduce and penetrate the concept of thinner core. It is happening, yes. Higher superabsorbent polymer is present, yes, but it has taken longer than the industry might have expected for Latin America. So there is an education. For example, when we talk to some users in the region, they say, okay, when I got my first kid, I always prefer a bulky type of core. But when my second child, well, I have some experience and I understand, for example, the thinner core, blah, blah, blah. So it is a long process still in Latin America to really see the adoption of thinner core. So this is why we see brands in Latin America still offering different concept of core. There are channel cores out there. There are cores with different designs, etc. But in summary, it is taking longer compared to other regions that have adopted super thin core.
That was something that came up in our discussion with Natalia Richer and Heidi Beatty as well. Was Natalia mentioned the preference for thicker cores in Latin America, and I thought that was surprising. I think the rationale makes sense, and it's about that education process, but that was something that was definitely surprising to me. Kelley, are we seeing any trends in cores in North America?
I mean, certainly thinner core has been adopted and there's the push for that. I think for the most part, it's been adopted. There would have to be another big step change, which I don't think the market and the consumers are calling for. Again, I think the thinner cores that most of our producers have achieved here in the US are working well for their consumers. I think of it a lot like femcare, where you have, your ultra thins, you have your maxis, and kind of everywhere in between. And there's always going to be consumers that want all those kinds of cores, from, the thickest kind, just because maybe that makes them more comfortable, or it just in general is more comfortable for them, to, the thinnest for whatever their reasons are for adopting that. And I think that can be related to baby as well, where for many different reasons, the parents believe that a core should be this thickness for these reasons, or thinner for these reasons. And, so I think there will always be a desire from the consumer, to have options, but certainly thinner is more popular and is definitely the trend here in North America. But I think, we're pretty thin now here in North America in general in baby. And so to go even thinner, there probably have to be a technology jump or something. And then again, it would be, does the consumer want that? So I think in general, that's where we're at now for North America.
And Kelley, I think we have a good example of the femcare segment. We have not talked about it today because of the lack of time. And I know we are running out of time, Jack. But In the confidence category, one of the things that we have learned in Latin America is the preferences are very different for a woman in Brazil, in Argentina, or in Mexico. So this thickness of the core in a diaper also relates to, for example, the thickness of a femcare pad. But the same for the positioning adhesive. There is a complete different need for a girl in Brazil or Colombia versus another country. So this is why we need to continue learning and adapting, because, for example, they are expecting different things based on their education or their behavior, etc.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that came up in our discussion with Jan O'Regan from Cotton Incorporated. She talked about some of the preferences for period products in different regions and the preference for tampons versus pads in certain regions or vice versa. And yeah, I think that was something that's pretty eye-opening to me, I was probably taken for granted, just assuming that, people all across the world could see the benefits of a specific type of product or a specific thickness of products, when there's a lot of cultural and experience, not bias, but experience preferences that are impacting what kind of products people want to use. And it's interesting how different that can be from country to country and from different parts of a region.
Yeah,
right.
And generational too, right? So every aspect of a consumer has an effect on what type of product they prefer. So again, one of the many things that make this industry so interesting.
Definitely.
The other aspect, if you allow me very quickly, Jack, is in confidence is skin sensitivity. Moms are taking care of their babies, and they are looking for softer substrates, or they are looking for more neutral type of baby diapers out there. So, in Latin America, another example is that there are countries where moms are putting special attention to skin sensitivity. They are putting creams and lotions. I'll just give you a particular example. In Colombia, they are crazy about the usage of creams. Super high amounts of creams are put in baby butts in order to protect for some irritation, etc. So in terms of confidence, there is also an important variable for the article producers to have a more neutral type of substrate or the right combination of ingredients that will not cause any effect or negative effect on moms. And also, these days, everything can go out rapidly in social media. So I think the skin sensitivity is a very important aspect that the market is putting attention these days.
And I agree with you 100%, Augusto. I think consumers are just more knowledgeable too about different ways to keep their skin, whether it's for fempad usage or their moms or dads and using adult incontinence, and then obviously babies too. I think consumers are starting to know what breathable means and what certain creams and lotions can do for skin health and those kind of things as well. So packaging and actually implementing things that can improve skin health for hygiene articles is something that resonates with consumers. So yeah, I completely agree.
Right, and also you brought a good important segment. The adult incontinence segment is connecting to what we just talked about, wearing pants. The pants in the adult segment is growing in Latin America, but we all understand it's a different type of pants. So we are seeing important growth in different colors of the outer covers and different elastic threads in the adult pants, the type of substrate that are being used in these diaper pants for adult incontinence. So that also plays a good role of understanding and developing the right adult inco pants for the new users.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we just had some interviews from incontinence users actually, and that was some of the topics that were discussed. And we talked a little bit about this in a menstrual health episode, but I'm curious how much of the changes and the demand for changes in adult incontinence products, specifically around comfort or style, is coming from this increased consumer education and awareness, as you talked about, Kelley, for baby products or for period products. And then as those parents or people who menstruate transition into the phase of potentially needing to use incontinence products, their standards are much higher now, and they're demanding better fitting or more stylish or more breathable products. And that's going to continue to drive trends in that area. And, we may see some sort of commoditization of those products down the line where you have really affordable, but, really good, high performing, comfortable, breathable products in that space.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if a parent is buying breathable, skin sensitive, for skin health products for their babies, and, women are focusing on fem care products that, provide good skin health and such, why shouldn't they demand the same thing when they're older or have become a bit incontinent and, want the same skin health for themselves, at that point in their life too? They know that it can be done. So, and we also see a huge trend in, the use of this kind of hybrid fem care product, light incontinence product, where clearly the skin health and the comfort that we've come to expect with fem care is being bridged into this light incontinence area. So why can't that take a step then into pants and such as well? So yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Jack.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that continues to evolve. And I think, we'll continue to see technology and innovation evolutions in baby care and period products or menstrual health products. But there's a lot of potential in adult incontinence as well, especially as what we talked about way back at the beginning of the interview with aging populations across the globe, and more people are going to need these products, and it's going to definitely drive innovation there. Well, I want to be cognizant of both of your time, and I know we could definitely, there's plenty of stuff for us to keep talking about, and we may have to bring you back for another episode down the line to talk about how things have changed and anything we haven't been able to talk about. But I just want to thank both of you for your time and offering your perspectives and experience in the market. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, this has been great. Thanks for having me, and this has been fun.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. And as anybody out there participating in this industry, we can talk hours and hours about these articles. Could be adult incontinence, baby diapers, period products. It's fantastic. So thank you for having me.
Thank you both. So there you have it. After these last two episodes, you now have a pretty in-depth overview of the Americas market, enabling you to respond to the changes and trends you heard about and continue to meet the changing needs of your customers. And, lucky for you, the insights don't end there. After our conversation with Kelley and Augusto mentioned that he had some additional information that he had gathered but was unable to share in the interview. So, I hopped on another call with him, and he shared an extra 15 minutes of insights on the Latin America market. So, we'll be sharing that with all of you next week. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we're offering all of our listeners a chance to get 5 different documents covering several aspects of sustainability in the absorbent hygiene industry in exchange for taking our listener survey. You'll get a glossary, an additional terminology document, 2 white papers, and an overview of eco-labels sent from me directly to your inbox. Filling out the survey will take you less than 1 minute and would really help us to continue to grow the show into something our listeners will love. Just head to the show notes, click the survey link, and answer 4 questions. That's it. We really appreciate your time and continued support of Attached to Hygiene. Attached to Hygiene is brought to you by Bostic and is hosted by me, Jack Hughes. It is produced and edited by me with the help of Paul Andrews, Michelle Tonkovitz, Emery Chernus, and Nikki Ackerman at Green Onion Creative. Our theme music is by Jonathan Boyle. We'd like to extend a special thank you to this episode's guests, Kelley Riegert and Augusto Quiroz. You can find Kelley on LinkedIn, or you can feel free to address emails to either of them at our hygiene@bostic.com email address. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.